The bottom 40% of copywriters got wiped out because they were not as good as ChatGPT. There's a lot of panic and fear from copywriters right now because of that.
With AI where it is today, are copywriters irrelevant?
Businesses always need to make sales. You need copywriters to make sales. So unless selling somehow goes away, copywriters are always going to be relevant. I've trained a bunch of people who were hitting six figures within a year, 18 months. The thing people get wrong with email is
Justin Goff, it's so good to see you, man.
Thank you, man. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for carving out time. So I know you as a copywriter. I did not know, actually, until digging into this, that you have built 5 different multi-million-dollar companies, 2 of which you've sold. One was a crazy fast ramp in supplements, which we have, Easy Pay Direct has tons of supplement companies as clients, so know the model. But most of them don't go from $1 million first year, $7 million second year, $20 million third year, and then sell.
Yeah.
No, most of them collapse. So I want to talk about kind of that journey, because you've also worked with these like massive brands for copywriting, Golden Hippo and Agora, and just like these huge empires. And copy clearly is an interesting skill set, but it's particularly interesting today with the rise of AI. With AI where it is today, are copywriters irrelevant?
No, definitely not irrelevant. I think there's a lot of panic and fear from copywriters right now because of that. The reality is, though, businesses always need to make sales. You need copywriters to make sales. So unless selling somehow goes away, copywriters are always going to be relevant. Copywriting has definitely changed, though, where it's more strategic now. So it's not like you're much better off if you're able to write copy, but you can also do marketing along with it and strategy, then you're going to be actually very useful. If all you can do is write copy, I think that's going to be a pretty limited skill.
Do you know Alex Catani?
Yeah.
So Alex has this channel on copywriting, right? Functionally. And a big part of her audience are independent people that are trying to make a career copywriting. Do you think that creating a career around copywriting makes sense right now?
One, it depends. Do you really want to do it? And actually, do you enjoy writing 5, 6, 7 hours a day? Because a lot of people get into copywriting from like, oh, I can make 10K a month doing this. And like, and my first question is, do you actually enjoy writing? Because that's what the job is.
Yeah.
It's sitting at a computer by yourself and writing. Like I said, I think it's headed much more in the path of a strategist who is also using AI with it. So like I said, if somebody just hires you and like, we need you to write 10 pages for this, that I think is going to become increasingly not as desirable as someone who's coming to you and says, okay, here's what we're thinking of doing. We want you to come up with the product. We want you to come up with the big idea. We want you to come up with, write the copy, like the whole thing together. That's going to be increasingly where copywriting is going, I think.
Yeah. I mean, I think that in a lot of ways, I always look at lots of roles in my company through the lens of what are the other supplemental skill sets that the person has that are going to be of value. And when I'm bringing people on, I want specialists at this stage, but a marketer that has a strong background in copy or a tech person that has a marketing background, way more valuable, right? Like we have, there's this consistent narrative on the planet about developers doing literally what you tell them instead of understanding the idea behind it, which is super frustrating. So when you have a developer that knows marketing, it makes total sense.
Right.
So copy, great. You can write the hook. You understand the fundamentals of how copy works, but today you think that they need to have a deeper understanding of marketing in general to be able to facilitate more of the process.
Yeah, that's definitely where it's going. And the floor is much higher than it was even 2 years ago, because the floor now is whatever ChatGPT could write.
Right.
And so the bottom, 40% of copywriters kind of got wiped out by that because they were not as good as ChatGPT. So now that's the floor now. And also the pace now is so much quicker now. Whereas before it was like, I'll get that to you in 3 months. And now it's like, we need this in 2 weeks, and they kind of expected to do it because you can cut a lot of that out with the AI.
I'm much better without a blank page, right? If I can start with something and then modify.
The blank page is the worst.
The blank page is the worst, right? So AI has been a godsend for that, right? It's like this beautiful, it just gives you something to start with. Also, though, if you start with something that's shitty,
Yes,
that's really hard because you kind of look at it and you're like, you pick it apart for 30 minutes and then you think, this is the wrong fucking framework anyway. Like, damn it, why am I modifying this? The whole thing needs to be different.
right.
So I guess you can just tell AI to redo it, but.
Well, I mean, one of the things you see is like the copywriters I know that are getting the best results with AI are all the best copywriters. It's because they understand what goes on behind the copy and can prompt the AI to think like that. Whereas someone who doesn't understand the all the stuff going on underneath doesn't know how to tell the AI how to do that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's going to be a super interesting part of education moving forward is, do you understand the fundamental principles behind what's happening? And if you don't, then you're going to be totally reliant on the robots.
Yeah.
And if you do, you're going to have influence and control over the output from the robots.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
If you wanted to be a copywriter today, what's the fastest path to make 10 grand a month?
So from what I've seen, I've trained a bunch of guys who have gotten there pretty quickly. So I'll give you a good example. So like when I learned copy, what took me probably, 5-6 years, like I've taught other people to do within a year to 18 months. And the process they followed was simple. Simple does not mean easy, but simple. It was literally write every single day, usually for at least an hour, sometimes more than that. And then have someone who's better than you at copy giving you feedback on it. So like if you just do those two things where it's like, let's say you want to get really good at writing emails, write 3 emails every single day, just find a product that you want to promote and be like, okay, I'm going to promote this product with these emails. And then you write those 3 emails. You either have a coach, you have a mentor, someone who's ahead of you in copy that can actually explain what you're doing wrong. And you're getting feedback constantly from them. That is the quickest way to get good. I mean, you can get really good, really quick. Like I said, I've trained a bunch of people who were hitting 6 figures within a year, 18 months, doing that kind of path.
Do you think that the robots can guide you on how good your copy is?
Yeah, I think you can definitely get good feedback from AI for sure. And you can have it take something that was written that wasn't that great and have it, okay, let's dumb this down to a 5th grade reading level, like things like that. Let's eliminate extra words in here, the fat that doesn't need to be in there, like stuff like that. Or let's add more excitement and energy to the copy. Like you can do all that.
One of the best things that I've figured out in AI in the last 6 months has been asking it why it did what it did. So if you're aiming for sales copy, for example, saying, why did you alter it this way? And it will give you the reference point and say, based on so-and-so's philosophy of this framework for selling, this is how we approached it.
Right.
But that gives you the process. And sometimes it gives you some dumbass shit where you're like, well, don't do that. Why did you pull it from there? But that's a helpful tool. Okay, let's back out. You had a whole bunch of other things going on in life. You've created a bunch of different companies, but the one that I knew you from was Patriot Health Alliance. And that was the 1 to 23 million in 3 years. Walk me through, as a copywriter, the mechanics of how you built that company. Because I know that you've spent a lot of time, and I've heard you talk about sort of building through email and selling through email and limited staff, automation, email, and converting. Is that how you built Patriot Health?
Yeah, it was a very email-based company. So our first offer that kind of really took off, I'm a big fan of study what's working in the marketplace and then create something similar that's 20-30% better with your own kind of unique hook on it. At the time, greens powders were not like popular like they are now. So this was 2014-ish. There was one that I kept getting in the mail. I'm on all these direct mail lists, so I can kind of watch what competitors are doing. There's one I kept getting in the mail all the time, is this greens powder. And if you keep getting stuff in the mail over and over again, it's working. That's like a good sign that,
because it's fucking expensive.
It's expensive to the mail. They're not wasting money doing it. So I kept getting this one. I was like, man, this thing, it must be working. I like this idea of the greens powder. My big thing with it was I was like, it doesn't really have like there's nothing unique. There's no unique hook on this. Like it's literally just 38 fruits and vegetables in a can kind of thing. That was their whole hook. And I kept seeing it. I was like, we could create something like this and find a much better hook for it. So at the time, we were buying a ton of traffic in conservative email lists. So in the conservative kind of political sphere, there's just massive email lists like Newsmax, Glenn Beck, like all those guys have just huge email lists. And you can buy all kinds of ads and you can do affiliate stuff. You can run your own products. And so we were doing all that. And I was like, there's something we could do here because the conservatives have such an affinity for the military. I was like, let's somehow attach this to the military. And at the time, I was like, my cousin was in the Coast Guard at the time, and I sent out his unit like a bunch of our greens powder. So we made this greens powder. We sent it out to his unit. I was like, just test this for us. Give us some thoughts on it. We got a bunch of results back. Honestly, there was not like anything like interesting in there. They're like, oh, it tastes great. Like I feel better, blah, blah, blah. But there was one guy in there who was like the older dude in their unit. And he was like, I'm like beating all my PT times now. He's like, and I'm beating some of the young guys. And like, I'm keeping up with the young guys. And I was like, ooh, that's a great hook. Like the older dudes love being able to like beat up on younger dudes. Like that's
for sure.
Yeah.
Especially in the military, I would imagine.
Yeah. And so we basically came up with a unique hook that it was this kind of elite greens powder that units of the military were using to help older guys keep up with the young bucks was kind of the whole hook. And our whole market, that whole market is basically like 50, 60, 70-year-olds. That's who's on all the email lists.
Yes. Let me ask you about that. So today, if you want to start a supplement company, the path for a lot of people is basically you white label some shit. There are all these companies out there that just make generic stuff and you can brand it and sell it. Back then, did you go that route or did you formulate something?
No, we kind of took what were the popular greens powders on the market, removed a bunch of the ingredients we didn't like, and then we worked with a doctor who he had a couple other ingredients that he wanted to add, and then kind of worked with the formulators. And
awesome.
Yeah. I mean, greens powder is a little different than supplements because the taste is a big deal, whereas supplements, that's obviously doesn't really matter.
Yep.
But the taste is obviously huge, and getting that consistently to taste the exact same is not easy.
Yeah. So the main reason I asked that is speed to launch. So I love the idea of create something and then test it and get the hook. That's a amazing construct because most people don't bother doing that. Most people, it doesn't occur to them to do that. So were you doing that just to get the hook?
So a lot of what I did was I would run affiliate offers on all these conservative email lists where I'm paying for the traffic, and then I mean if it works, I'm making money. If it doesn't work, I'm losing money. So I'm putting my money on the line. And I just noticed over and over like which angles, which hooks, like what are working. And I'm like, you just see the pattern so many times. It's like, okay, we could easily do this with like a better version of it. Or like they were only paying us, I don't know, $100 CPA on it. I'm like, okay, well, if that was our own product and we we're making $200, like this would crush. So I basically tested everything with other people's products as an affiliate, figured out what worked, and then based on what worked, kind of created our product.
Got it. So for people that aren't heavy in the affiliate game, basically there are these, and you can tell me where this didn't fit your model, but basically there are these marketplaces out there of people that have their own products and they say, hey, go promote my product and we'll pay you. You said CPA, cost per acquisition. So anything that converts, anybody that buys shit, we'll give you whatever percentage, right?
Yep.
So you were just looking at all these other people's products, putting your copy and your affiliate link in an email, and you were paying for the placement in the email and seeing what would convert. And so you're basically just doing affiliate marketing through email.
Yep.
And then you were like, okay, I can make my own product and make more.
Yep.
Love it.
Pretty simple.
What was the lever that took you from, like $1 million the first year to $7 million the second year?
So once we got the greens powder dialed in, it was really just scaling it up on more email lists. So once it worked out one email list, it was like, okay, let's get it on another one. And then with email, one of the interesting things is those emails. So like if you're going to, let's say, Glenn Beck's newsletter list, if you keep using the same creative, let's say you'd send it every Saturday, it's going to burn out. because same people are reading it every day, every week. And sooner or later, the sales are just going to tail off. And it's not that your offer, a lot of people are like, oh, my offer is dying. It's like, no, the email is dying because they've just seen it too many times. So between just getting on more email lists, and then also we started rotating more creatives in. So like, I think at our tip top point, we had 3 like really, really solid creatives that were just working bang, bang, bang. So we just keep rotating all 3 of them. So that allowed us to buy way more traffic.
Where do you go to get the emails?
There's like agencies that represent all of these, like the conservative list, like some guy you'll find, and he literally represents 100 different lists. And
give me the ballpark for the economics of this. So like if you want, is it a dedicated email? Is it placement in an email? How does that work?
Both. So yeah, we would do both. A dedicated would be literally just your copy. There's nothing else in it. A placement one would be Newsmax sends out a thing with a bunch of news links and whatever news of the day is, and then you have like an ad underneath it. So you don't really get to control the subject line or anything like that. But like those are cheaper usually because you're not getting a dedicated placement. The economics, we were always shooting for break even. If we could acquire a customer at break even, then we could just keep building up our list and make all the money on the back end. Like especially with supplements, which is great because they order it once, they're going to order it again, usually if they like it. So our thought was always just try to break even on the front. The thing with the greens powder that was interesting, and we knew it was a home run. I remember the first couple we tried didn't really work. It wasn't because of the offer, it was because of the email creative. It wasn't really connecting. Then I wrote one that really connected, and we spent like $3,000 on this email drop on Newsmax. And I remember we're like checking the stats, and like the next day we had already made like $15,000. And I'm like,
I found it.
I was like, something's either broken or we just hit an absolute home run. One of the two. Because I've never, out of anything I'd ever promote, I'm like, I've never seen like a 5X. This is insane. So then like the next weekend we ran the same thing and it did like a 4.5X. I was like, oh my God, we got an absolute home run here. So
what was it about that copy that sold?
It was the military angle. It was basically like old guys in the military feeling young again. Literally, that's kind of what it was. That was an interesting thing that took me a while to understand because I actually tried to do a lot of copy about living longer. Mm-hmm. And I realized after a while, I was like, oh, old people don't want to live longer. They just want to be young again. Mm. It's a slight difference, but it made a huge difference in conversion rates and sales and all that. Like I was trying to hit a bunch of stuff on like living to 100 and like stuff like that. And it took me a while I was like, oh, they just want to be young again. That's what they really want.
I asked my father the other day, I was like, how's it going? He's like, I'm old. He was like, things are breaking. And I was like, yeah, how do you feel about that? And he was like, it sucks. But I was like, yeah, I mean, thank you for your honesty.
So the funny thing is that took me a long time so when I was writing this copy, I was probably 30 to 31. So I had not experienced anything of like knees hurting and not having energy. Like I felt great all the time.
You're feeling it now though, huh?
Yeah. I'm 41 now. I'm starting to understand it. I'm like starting to see my own mortality and things hurt. But I mean, to me, that's obviously that's the biggest part of copywriting. And like you could talk about hooks and headlines and big ideas and all that all day, but whoever understands the customer the best is usually who's going to win.
It's a good takeaway. How do you figure that out?
So I mean, a couple of things I give to people that I feel like are great shortcuts. Like I talked about, studying the other stuff in the market, without a doubt is the best. Because if you find like a video sales letter or a sales page that's been crushing it, you can figure out all the like emotions they're targeting. What's the big desire they're hitting on? What's the fear, the pain point? Like what's all the stuff they're hitting on? That's just like a straight cheat sheet for you to know. Okay.
Well, let's talk about those things though, because I think the difference between somebody that knows what they're doing and what they don't is you can study somebody else's stuff. But if you don't know what you're looking for, if you don't have a criteria to say, what's the hook, what's the emotion, et cetera. Yeah. It's like, what's the punch list of things that you want to look for when you're looking at somebody else's email copy and say, this is what I want to transfer over.
Yeah. So I would say like the big thing would be like, what's the big promise? So like with that greens powder, it was like basically to feel young again. Like there was all kinds of secondary promises, but the main promise was how to feel young again. So if you would have like broke down that whole sales letter that I wrote and you're like, okay, I want to enter the greens powder market. I want to see what's working. Let's watch what he's doing. That would be something you'd write down right away. Okay, feeling younger is kind of the big thing that they're going for.
And by the way, it's not necessarily a feature or benefit of the product. It is, but it's one that you are creating based on what the product is. And it could be a whole bunch of things.
Right.
And that, like that example is not like if somebody says what are greens powders for, that's not actually probably normally what somebody would take away.
No, like, because if you look at something like AG1 that's super popular now, it's kind of promoted as a health insurance to get all your vitamins, minerals. They don't really use that language of like feeling younger again.
Yeah.
But yeah, really kind of diving into what other people are, what has worked in the market before, what's working in the market now is probably the biggest shortcut you can find. Another thing I've been a huge fan of, and I've probably told this to, I don't know, thousands of marketers, and maybe 3 of them have ever actually listened to me and done it. Every Friday, I would call 3 of my customers and just talk with them on the phone for usually about hour and a half total between all 3 of them. The things that came out of that I learned that I was not aware of was just shocking. One of the things you learn really quick is you're usually talking way over their head. Mm-hmm. That is usually becomes very evident where you're like, oh man. So one of my friends, Brixton Albert, who runs a big golf company.
It's a fantastic name.
Brixton's was a really good golfer, and so he's got this company, and like he's talking to his golfers like he shoots like in the 70s, like he's a good golfer. And he said he took this advice, got on the phone with like, I don't know, 30 of his customers, and he was just like mind blown because like they're all shooting 115, and it's like guys with bad backs, and like their biggest problem is like just making contact with the ball. And he's like, it was just mind blowing. He's like, I was talking so far over their head compared to like where they're actually at. Like you can't connect with them like that. So so getting back to like just understanding the customer, like I said, I've told this to, I don't know, thousands and thousands of people, and like I said, 3 people probably have ever actually taken the advice and done it, but it'll change everything you see about your customers. You'll learn so much more about them.
Yeah, that's super interesting. I have I think that's like a discipline to say, how do we actually not scratch our own itch, meaning not produce content that is at the level that we're actually interested in, and focus on distilling it to the lowest common denominator for the outcome. And as a copywriter, of course, that's like the goal, right? But I think for certainly me, when I think about like the conversations I want to be having, I want to be talking to people about things that are interesting to me.
Right.
So when you produce stuff, I want it to be interesting to me. But the game is figuring out how to hit the most fundamental elements and not talk over them.
And if you're good at what you do, you're probably so far ahead of the people you're selling to. Like I even noticed it when I had my mastermind with Copy Accelerator. I even had like wake up calls in there, and like people running $50, $100 million businesses. And I realized like I was talking over their head in certain things. I was like, I thought for sure you guys knew this stuff. So yeah, you really got to understand like where they're at, and you got to meet them where they're at.
Yeah. I think that's a great takeaway. So same was the growth of that business all just about scaling up, more email lists, sell more? Cause you went 1 to 7 to 23 in 3 years, and then you sold. Was it the same playbook the whole time, or did something change for 7 to 23?
So, I mean, yeah, really, it was honestly all email. It was email between us buying email and then bringing on affiliates who were doing email. That pretty much all grew off of one product. Like we had back end products that we sold, but like our front end that actually brought people on, put them on an email, it was the same thing. It was pretty much, we knew what we were good at, which was email. And I was like, that's a good lesson too for people to take away. Because like if you're trying to be really good at Facebook and email and YouTube and TikTok, you're probably going to be mediocre at all 4 of them. But if you can just like focus on one and get your business to $20 million, then you can kind of start expanding and bringing on other stuff. Like you don't want to grow to 100 million based with one like traffic source. You're probably not gonna be able to do that. But that first part when you're kind of growing though, like it's much better to just find one and just get really damn good at it.
So when you went to the critique with that statement will be when you go to sell the company, if you have one traffic source, that's probably not what the buyer wants. Maybe.
For sure. Yeah. Oh yeah. That would be a caveat. If your plan is to sell within that couple of years, then for sure you'd have to expand it and have more traffic sources.
So tell me about the exit, how that happened.
So both of my exits I've had are not like a traditional exit where you're selling to someone outside. Both of mine I sold to my partner.
Oh, shit.
A lot different than selling to an outside company.
I didn't realize that.
Yeah, because selling to the partners, I mean, they understand the business. Obviously, there's really not there's not a whole lot like that goes on between just kind of the negotiation of how much you're gonna get paid and what you guys think it's worth. And
so how did you come to those numbers and that agreement with the partner, and why did you want to do it?
So with Patriot Health, they actually came to me. So one of the issues was they had a survival company that was like their main company, and we were sharing employees and just paying like a monthly fee for the employees. And they kind of realized we're putting all of our time and our employees' time into this health company, and we only own 50% of it, whereas this other company we own 100% of, and it's not really worth our time. Just keep putting all. So they're like, we either want to buy you out or you buy us out. So, yeah, we had like a 4-month negotiation. Kind of came up with the numbers, and it's funny looking back now because I was probably 33 at the time. I was like such a fucking asshole.
In what way? What do you mean?
Because I remember when they brought that idea to me about, like, my initial thought was just like, fuck you. Like, I'm not selling anything. Like, I built this. Then I had a couple of good conversations with people who had sold companies, and they were like, are you like super passionate about this? Do you want to keep doing it? I was like, honestly, I'm kind of like losing my flair for it. I'm just not that into it anymore. They're like, well, why wouldn't you just sell it? And then you can have a bunch of money and figure out what you really, really want to do. And that's eventually kind of what I settled on. But yeah, just the ego of me at that age was just like flaring up big time.
Well, so you used language just now that leads me to believe that I'm gonna take a stab at it. But you use the language of them and they, and we're not talking pronouns right now specifically, but we're talking about the positioning of that leads me to believe that basically you had equity in the company because of your skill set as a copywriter, and they had something else going on. And so you forged a relationship around that. That's what it sounds like. What was the relationship between you and the partner in the business?
Yeah, so I originally built it to $1 million with a different partner. And then my partner, Alan and Aaron, came in, bought him out, and we grew it from there. And I partnered with them originally because our skill sets fit really well. I was great at marketing, products, copy, stuff like that. And they were great at ops and scaling. And I would suck at ops and scaling. Not only do I suck at it, but I have zero interest in learning anything about it.
Yeah.
So it was a really good fit. And it obviously worked out because we scaled to 23 million pretty quickly. But yeah, once we kind of went through the negotiations, then everything's great with us now. And honestly, after I talked to a couple other people, they were like, this is a very good negotiate. Like, it's usually like an ugly divorce and you'll never talk to the person again and you're going to hate them for the rest of your life. And I was like, oh, we didn't have any of that. So
do you want to share numbers on it?
What I made off it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I made, it was like 3.94 million, somewhere in there.
Got it.
Which for a director, this is the thing, like, people hear like we were making 23 million a year revenue. You'd think you'd get a lot more than that. But direct response is because the company wasn't really sellable,
right,
like to an outside buyer.
Right.
And so we basically I think I got like 2 years worth of profit.
Yeah. Yeah. I have so much value for knowing the structure and the numbers behind these things because people are delusional. And so, like, legit though, there are people that have billion-dollar companies, but they diluted themselves to 5% ownership or something. And so that's a very different number. 50 million or a billion is a very different thing. And every industry has different multiples and different ways they're valued for exit. And an offer, which is what one green product is, versus a brand,
very different things,
right? That's awesome. So that's like enough money to buy you some time and say, okay, let me think about what's next.
Yeah, I took a year off after that. That was actually one of the things so I talked to a couple of people who had sold their companies and asked them, like, what should I do? What should I expect? And 4 different guys who all sold for a lot more money than me and more smarter than me. They all had one thing in common. They were like, I'm either super grateful for the time I took off after, or I wish I would have took more time off. I was like, oh, that's interesting. And I didn't want to. I had a whole nother business plan, like ready to start the next day of like what I was going to do. And they're all like, no, you should take they started me slowly, like take like 4 to 6 months off. And I was like, okay. I ended up taking about a year off, which it's really weird. So I've done this twice, and like the first like 6 to 8 weeks is really, really hard because you realize how addicted you are to work.
Yeah.
Because I kept getting up at like 7:30 the next morning and standing at my computer. I'm like, I know I'm supposed to be here. Like, what am I supposed to be doing?
Yeah. Incessantly writing or checking emails or some shit.
Yeah, you're trying to stay busy. And then I would say after about 2 months, I kind of got used to it of just living what I would call a slower life. It was like I'd wake up an hour later. I would like take an hour to make a cool breakfast. I would go to the dog park with my dogs and we just hang out for 2 hours. Whereas before it'd be like, no, we got to go for 20 minutes. We got to get home because I got stuff to do. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's really kind of eye-opening when you realize like how addicted you are to work and how much your identity comes from the work. Because that's a big thing too, because you start to feel super, super lost, where you're like, this thing that I've been doing my whole life that everybody knows me as, that I've gotten all this status and self-worth from, is now just gone. That's a weird, weird feeling.
I can imagine, and I am both self-aware that I'm in that trap right now and in denial that it's not important. I'm like, just keep fucking going. Keep going. But I also think that there's a lot of value in when you're in that moment and you are expanding and growing. For me, in the absence of some master plan, the plan is to learn the lessons that I can from each new stage. And each new stage has crazy lessons. Like you can work yourself out of a 7 or 8 figure business and have somebody else run it, but it's not going to go to 9 or 10 if you just try to delegate it out to, oh, you do it, So the lessons through each of those stages are new and different and can cause new identity, new work, new focus, and fucking intensity where you're like, shit, now I don't know what I'm doing at this stage. Let me figure it out. What was the criteria for getting back into work?
Yeah, so it was, I'd say probably around month 9, I started to feel itchy and wanted to get back and doing something. During that break, I had mentored 2 of my buddies who knew nothing about online marketing. One was a financial advisor, and one was like a journalist, kind of sports writer type thing. And they both wanted the like freedom of being able to like make money online. They had like looked at it, heard about it, and I was like, I had never like really taught anybody anything. I was like, just kind of took it as a challenge. I was like, I kind of want to see if I feel like I could teach you guys how to write copy, and you could do it. You're both smart. You're both hard workers. I feel like I could do it. So while I was kind of taking my break, I did that. And I realized pretty quickly that I really enjoyed the mentoring aspect and coaching and kind of seeing the transformation in their life. And both of them ended up being really successful. I mean, both of them today make like $300,000 a year as copywriters, and they're doing that's really cool from my point to see. I had that effect on them just from teaching them how to write copy. So that the actual like transformation was really impactful to me. So I started doing a little more coaching right when I came back. And I realized pretty quickly that that's kind of the area I wanted to go. And I started the Copy Accelerator Mastermind with Stefan Georgi. And we grew that to like 4.5 million. lower, obviously a lower revenue business, but much higher
margin.
Yeah.
Yeah. What was the margin on the supplement company?
So like when we hit 23 million, I think we were taking home 4.5, something like that.
Okay. So
Yeah.
20-25%, something like that.
Yeah, somewhere around there.
Yeah. And the margin on the coaching. Coaching is interesting because obviously it's like 100% kind of, and you've got some maybe 90, 95, like you've got some tech tools and shit, but you can also do coaching with like high-end masterminds where you're actually spending a shitload on the venues and stuff.
Yes.
For sure.
We made that mistake later on.
For sure.
It was actually really a big learning lesson for me because I thought I was just going to walk right into the coaching mastermind stuff and like crush it. And I was working with my coach at the time, and like he kind of just laid it out for me. He's like at first I was kind of struggling with some stuff, and he's like, I know you were very successful with like supplements. He's like, understand this is a very different business. Like I know you're in the same like world and doing kind of similar things as you did, but he's like, this is like a relationship business. This is like people. You were doing like much more behind the scenes with copy and like this is so different. And now I'm the face of the company with Stefan too. So it's like very, and I that honestly didn't even like click in my mind. I was like, oh, he's actually very right. He's like, you're not just going to come out of the gate and be making $3 million a year. Like you're going to have to build it up for like a year or two, and that's going to get there. And that's kind of what happened. But yeah, we kind of ran into that where team needed to get bigger, costs started spiraling, doing stuff at nicer venues, and then where we were like in the first, I don't know, like middle of the second year when we were taking home like $1.5 million each. Then the next year it's like, okay, now we're taking home $500,000. And it's like, I feel like we're doing better now. how are we not making as much money?
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's
and that was just cost control.
Pretty much cost control. But this is all during COVID too, and that really kind of threw a wrench into everything. Because we were originally working with mostly just like high-end business owners, people who own direct response kind of businesses, all the people you probably work with.
Mm-hmm.
But our main way of getting everybody into the mastermind was we would have live events. People would come to live events, and then we'd pitch our mastermind at the live events. People would sign up. That worked great. And then COVID hit, and we switched to virtual events.
Mm-hmm.
And we did not realize this at the time, but you're not going to get some guy who's making $20 million a year to sit in front of a computer for 3 days and watch an event on Zoom.
Yeah.
The person that a lot of the copywriters would do that, like all the copywriters were down, but the high end business owner just was not. So the whole demographic switched. And that really changed our business kind of in a way. Looking back now, it was a massive change, but like while we were going through it, like I didn't realize how big of a change it was. And even in my head, I was like, well, we're literally teaching the same stuff to the copywriters and the business owners. Like we're teaching them how to write better copy, how to get offers to convert, how to increase average order value, all that type of stuff. But the business owners, what they want and what the copywriters want is like so different. Because the business owners are like, give me a couple things that work. Give me a couple connections. I like the live in-person stuff. Anything more than that, they see as usually like a bad thing. It's like they don't want to be on weekly calls. They don't want to like be doing all this other stuff.
Yeah.
The copywriters are like the exact opposite.
Right.
Like the more hand-holding you can give them, the more encouragement you can give them, the better. So it's a very, very different.
Yeah. Well, it goes back to the messaging consideration, right? It's like if you're targeting 50 to 70-year-old men for greens powder, is the message live forever, or is it pretend that you're younger?
Yeah.
Right. And the same thing is true with the copywriter versus the business owner, which is what's the message behind it? And of course, the deliverable is different too, I suppose, or could be, but the messaging is certainly different.
The messaging is definitely different, and the delivery, the deliverable is very different. That's what I wasn't ready for.
And you sold out of that also.
Yeah. So that one, I think it was in summer of 2022. Steph and I just had very different kind of visions for how it should be ran. And we were talking about bringing on another partner. We had all these other discussions about that. we were kind of making decisions 50-50, and then Stefan wanted more control. And I kind of just like blurted out, I was like, well, if you wanted more control, like, you just buy me out. And he was like, oh, really?
Okay.
Like, yeah. And so we kind of started thinking about it, and I was like, yeah, honestly, it was the quickest, probably the quickest sale ever, because we mentioned that on like a Sunday. I gave him a number on Tuesday, and I think by Thursday we had signed the contract for.
Oh, damn.
Like, it was that quick. It was just.
Had you had any plan for that? I mean, like the idea of being, so it's weird, man, because for me, I started Easy Pay Direct in 2012. It's, 2025. So I've been going for a while. I'm the only owner, right? No outside capital, and just building. The idea of like one day being like, oh yeah, sure, I'm going to be gone. And then 3 days later, just being out is jarring. Right. And it some of it's identity. Some of it is just, is it pragmatically a quote unquote good decision? Right. Should I ruminate on this further before making a decision? Did you have things in your head before you decided to get out, or was it just, were you not enjoying it?
It was much more, I kind of saw that Steph and I were really good at getting it to the point where we grew it to like 200 members. Both of us are marketers, though. Neither of us are operators. And I was like, in order to bring this to the next level, we need to bring in a real CEO who's an operator. Me and you can still obviously be the face of it, but we need to bring in an operator, because me and you this is not our specialty. This is not what we're good at. And he disagreed with me on that. And so I was like, I mean, that's fine. But I don't want to keep going with this if it's going to be me and you trying to grow it, because I don't think it's going to work. Yeah, it was really just a pragmatic thing, I think, for me. It's like, it's kind of like having a partner is like being in a relationship where it's like a lot of this stuff is good, but then there's things where it's like, if she has this, we're probably not going to be able to be married if this is going on, or if this is what she wants and I don't want that. Yeah, 80% of it's great, but the marriage probably ain't going to work. That's kind of the way I looked at it.
Yeah, sure. So you've been through a number of partnerships. Will you get in another one?
I actually operate much better in the partnership. And even when I do like little things, like I did a copywriting retreat in Sayulita, Mexico for like 2 years with Dan Ferrari, who's another really good copywriter.
Is that a fake name?
No. And even like that, like I love doing that retreat with him, because it was like a 1 + 1 = 3 kind of thing. And like he would bring up stuff for the people at the retreat that like, I was like, shit, I would never even thought of that. And then I would bring up stuff and he's like, God damn, he's like, that's a great idea. So I love that kind of bouncing back and forth that you have with a partner. I don't know. I mean, I'm definitely, if I'm going to build something that has to have operations, I think I probably will do it with a partner, just because that's, like I said, it's not my strong suit.
Okay, this is the interruption where I'm supposed to take money and let somebody else advertise on the podcast, but I don't really want to do that. So I'm going to remind you that I also own easypaydirect.com. And if you're a business that's accepting credit cards or needs to, beyond the fact that we can do a rate review to save you money, beyond the fact that we give you dedicated account reps, world-class customer service, world-class technology, and can actually optimize the way you accept payments online, you should understand why we have thousands of people a year come to us off of platforms like Stripe or PayPal, and why they prefer Easy Pay Direct. You can check us out at epd.com/BAM. That's epd.com/BAM. I kind of want to dig into some of the granular things about email. And then I want to talk about, and that's really just because I want to be better.
Okay. Personal consulting session.
Yeah, exactly. Personal. And then I want to talk about kind of how you think about the next stages of life, because you've navigated through a bunch of companies. You've exited a couple times and taken some money off the table. And I know that you think about lifestyle design and how you actually, like, what you get into and how it fits with your life. And I think that it's a really important element of things. I think it's far more important after you have made some money and done something.
Yeah.
I think there's a heavily distorted view from the youngest generation right now of that being relevant or important. And I think it compromises work ethic and quality. My take. People have there's a sense of entitlement around what their day-to-day lifestyle should be. And I just think that you miss a lot of good lessons about hard work and focus. Before we get to that, email. So you build the whole company on email. For most people, email is a part of the company. Most brands, big companies, obviously direct response is this unique space where, who did you come up under? Who did you learn copy from? Like, what were some of your role models early on?
I mentored under David Deutsch for about a year and a half. That was around 2014. I was mostly self-taught until then.
Yeah, I was in a Dan Kennedy mastermind through another venture in like 2010 before Easy Pay Direct. And that was kind of my intro to like that stuff. And then before that, I was looking at, I look at them as like the OG internet marketers, like Phil Same and
John Reese
and Frank Kern and those guys. Today, email has to be a part of the game, but there's a shitload of noise too. So, but clearly email can still be super effective. What are the elements of selling through email? Like how do you think about, let's say, let me give you a for instance, because I think it'll be more helpful. You have a company and you have a website and you've got cold traffic and you've got ads running, and let's say it's a supplement company and you're selling on like your website or on Amazon or whatever, and you're driving ads to get there. You sell. What does the email follow-up sequence look like? What's the point of it? And what are the elements of the emails? And how long does it go? What's the cadence? What do you do with that?
So yeah, let's use an example, like, because it really depends what the company is. Because there's a lot of ways that work and a lot of ways that make a lot of money. So like our friend Mike Geary, he crushes
the same shit over and over and over and over.
The same shit since like 2008. Yeah, it's like $10 million a year, like killing it. But like Mike basically does all kinds of low cost ebooks, physical books, stuff like that. Gets them on the email list. And he's just a wizard at email, but he's just pumping out affiliate offers after affiliate offer. Like there's no branding, there's no face of the brand. There's not, like, it's literally just hammering offers, and he sends some content out too.
Let me clarify that for a second, because he works with big brands, right? He works with brands, but I think what you're saying is he will then take the brand's list. So here's the business model for Geary. He's so weird too. I love him. His business model basically is he finds people with huge lists, and then he will monetize the list on the back end. And he does it by just pumping affiliate offers through really good email copy. But I think what you just said was basically he takes the list and he drives them to opt in for some lead magnet. And
so we're kind of talking about two different things. Okay. So he has two different businesses, but like his main business, so that's his, where like he has an offer to a $10 ebook or something, and then people buy it, get on his list, and then he's just hitting them right away with other books, supplements, like those emails too. They don't have any type of, like, there's no storytelling, there's no personality behind them, there's no brand. It's just pretty much affiliate offers.
Oh, interesting.
I've always, and that way works great. Like,
what's the starting point? So where do the ebook opt-ins come from?
They come from like him running ads on Facebook.
Oh, okay.
And then them buying his $10 ebook about apple cider vinegar, and then they're going to get a bunch of health offers sent to him. So like, I think Mike's a great example of that, because he's been running that same playbook for a long ass time, and it's still crushed. And he's got, I don't know, 7-8 different businesses. And then, as you said, he runs 50 other email lists for other people.
Yeah.
And does the same thing.
Well, those are the ones I'm interested in, because I think that like there's the independent business model of what you just said, which I can't believe that it works. And I think that I think it's hard to get it to work. Like, there aren't that many Mike Gearys, right?
No, he's very good at what he does.
He's very good at what he does. And so like selling an ebook and then monetize and getting that to consistently convert and self-liquidate, right? Pay for the cost of ads and then sell them other shit on the back end. People try to do that all the time, and they might get it to work for a second and then they fail. And so it's very spiky. And we see this in the numbers with Easy Pay Direct, right? We see that business model. But the other side of it is he takes somebody else's list to increase the value of the list, meaning so let's say there's a supplement company and they have a dedicated brand and dedicated product set. And he will then take the list and sell them affiliate offers. My concern with that model in general would be that it would dilute the brand or dilute the list. Is he segmenting off the list? And this, I'm trying to get to, what does that email thing look like for a standard business that wants to be better at email marketing?
So I would say for like your standard business, like if we took like a Dr. Gundry kind of type thing, which is a Golden Hippo brand, that like if they put me in charge of that email list, I would do a very different style than Mike's, because Mike's is more of what I would call like a churn and burn, where it's like he's adding 1,000, 2,000, 5,000 new names every day. So like he doesn't really care if people leave within 60 days or whatever.
Yeah.
Like he just wants to sell them as much stuff as possible.
Right.
Someone like Gundry, very different, because he has a face and a brand and doesn't want people to hate him. So
right. Yeah,
that's going to be operated very differently. So like an email list like that, I would do much more telling stories from Dr. Gundry's voice. Like it would be literally an email from Dr. Gundry, him talking about how, I don't know, he has this 83-year-old patient and she had like one foot in the grave and now she's like running triathlons. And then you tell this whole story and you're like, at the end, you're like, I just want you to know it's never too late to make a change, something like that. And then you could plug some of your products in there, or you could have like products at the bottom of the email. You can do like soft kind of pitches. You can do harder pitches, however you want to do it. That's more of what I would call like a personality-based email. I've always written my emails like that, where it's much more personal stuff from my life, storytelling, to get them to bond with me. And if you have someone that's the face of the company, that's always a really good way to do it.
Yeah, there's a consistent conversation that I have around an individual versus a brand, right? And I think that there are benefits to both, or there seem to be. So when I hear that, I think like this is a dedicated newsletter. So if I look at any given supplement brand and it's a brand, not an individual, do you take that and sort of push people into a newsletter and say, hey, if you want more information on this, we'll teach you about health? Or do you auto enroll them? And like, how do you parse that into this narrative email thread?
I mean, so the way I've always done it is like, it's just our buyers. So if our buyers somebody bought a supplement from us, they're automatically on the daily newsletter now.
Got it. And you just manage the newsletter as a separate list.
What do you mean?
Well, I mean, like, for us, for example, somebody signs up for a merchant account and we have and we're a little unique because like we have shit that they need to see, right? There's financial stuff that like you can't opt out of these, like you need these emails, right? But then there's the other side of it, which is maybe we want to educate you further ongoing. So we have the onboarding flow, which is you want to get set up and work with us and we want to optimize your initial accounts. And then we have sort of this idea of a newsletter, or you want to learn more or have other product interests, right? And we branch out. But that's what I'm getting at. Is it like the primary follow-up sequence that you're doing, and there's just one follow-up sequence, which is like you clearly expressed interest in greens, so we're just going to teach you about health, and that's what the email is going to be?
So I've always kept it, you can make this as complicated or as simple as you want. I'm a keep things simple person.
I love that.
So I actually have never done like follow-up sequences for buyers. Like as soon as they buy, they get whatever the main like email they get that they bought. And then there will be some mention about like, you're now on the newsletter. You're going to get a daily email from us about this, this, and this. First one you're going to get tomorrow morning at 9:00. And then they're just on the normal broadcast email that goes out every single day.
And you're writing those in real time?
Yeah. Yeah. I would write them the morning of and send them out.
What's the cadence? How often are you sending?
Every day.
Jesus. How long are they?
I've honestly never even looked at, I would say somewhere between 500 and 1,000 words probably.
Okay. I'm not a writer. I don't know what
somewhere
to do with
that. I mean,
how much do I scroll? Like how many paragraphs?
Your average email that I write,
how long do you think people are reading
is going to take probably 5 minutes to read.
Okay.
So it's not like 3 little sentences. Like it's usually a big story. The way I've always done mine is usually stories always work the best. So it's some type of story and then whatever the point is. So the thing people get wrong with email is they think it's about information, and information is boring. Nobody really wants information. People want 80% like entertainment, and then they want like some point to take away. Like the one I told you, like you tell the story of the old lady who had one foot in the grave and her doctor told her she had a month to live. That could be a super entertaining story. And then how a month later she went out and ran a 5K, and like here she is like showing everybody how this great turnaround she had. And then the point of, you always got to have a point. You can't just tell a story with no point. The point of the email is like, and they don't have to be a big thing. It's like, it's never too late to get started. So if you wrote that to a bunch of 60, 70, 80-year-old people, like you get an amazing response. Like, oh, that's so inspiring. Thank you. I love you. Like, thanks for sending that. So that's like when I had my health company, that was the type of stuff I would send. And then when I did stuff for like copywriters and marketers, I would tell stories that were more obviously like same thing though, like stories from my life or clients I'd worked with or stuff like that.
So we're living in an age of very short attention spans. I know even me personally, a 5-minute read in an email, I find myself archiving newsletters left and right. Is there a target demographic that works well and one that in a demo that doesn't work well with email marketing?
The thing I found is if it hooks them right away and if it's entertaining, people are gonna read it. That whole idea of like people not paying attention anymore, I think there is truth to that. But then it's like, how does Joe Rogan have a 3-hour podcast episode? Like that completely obliterates that narrative.
Yeah. It kind of, except that listening and viewing is different than reading.
It is, but and also with, I mean, when someone's like a fan of yours though, like, and like I said, this is all about too, like hooking them quick. It's like same thing with like a TV show. Like if I try to watch a new TV show and it doesn't like grab me in the first 5 minutes, the rest of those episodes went to waste because like you're not getting me in. But if you hook me in that first, like I might watch 4 seasons of it.
Yeah.
Email's the same way where it's, and this is probably one of the biggest problems I see with copywriters where it's like it takes them 6-7 sentences to like get to the meaty part, and it's like, yo, this is what you should start the email with. Like that was the best part of the email, and it's like you did all this build up and like clearing your throat to get to the part that really matters.
Yeah.
So really like grabbing them right away. And yeah, I mean, the consistency though of the daily email makes a huge difference because it's kind of like I used to be a really, really big Howard Stern fan. And so I would tune in every single day to listen to Howard Stern. And it's like when it's something you like and you enjoy, you want it more.
Right.
Like if Howard's like, oh, being on the radio every day is like too much, I'm just going to do twice a week. Like people who are actually fans of the show would be like, no, like we want to hear from you every day. And I kind of look at email the same way.
Yeah, that's interesting. It's also interesting that you don't build follow-up sequences and they're all broadcast because do you have a through line through all the broadcasts over time? Do you call back to other emails or are they all like siloed direct response emails that have an intention of selling?
So like with my copywriting business that I had, and I was writing same thing, daily email every single morning, wake up, write for 45 minutes, send it out. There would definitely be stories I would tell and might refer back to another thing, but like even new people on, like they get my main like welcome email, which is super long. It basically just tells my entire like origin story and a whole bunch of like bonding points in there. But yeah, once they're on the list, it's like I'm trying to like just grab them right away and entertain. Like I said, entertain first by far, 80% entertainment, and then 20% just kind of teaching them some kind of lesson that they can take away. Like I made the mistake when I first started doing email, like, I don't know, 15 years ago, where I was that guy who was like really trying to teach like super tactical stuff, or I try to teach like multiple things in one email and people just don't have the capacity to understand that. So like if you try to teach 3 different things in one email, it never works. Like you can't really, people just can't comprehend it. Or if I try to teach some super in-depth thing about the best upsell framework that like people just tune out. It's not It's not really interesting. There's a small minority of people who will kind of like tune into that. But if you want like people to stay and read your stuff every day for months and years, it's got to be about the entertainment.
How many of these emails, when you have somebody on a list like this, are actually have an embedded call to action that's trying to monetize versus just trying to engage them, keep them on the list?
So it really depends. Like when I had my supplement company, every email sold in one way or another. Whether it was a soft sell pitch at the bottom or it was like a direct like promo kind of hard pitch. When I had my copywriting business, that one was usually half and half, where like I would do a launch for 10 days and those would all be pretty hard sell. But it's literally the same format though. Like I would tell a story or I'd do some type of proof in a story and then like pitch. So it like they're really not that different than like the regular emails I would send. Just like the regular emails just wouldn't have anything to buy. Yeah. So I mean, and there's the same thing. There's really no one way to do it. I know other people who sell every single day. Works great for them. I know other people who just kind of pick their spots and that works great. So it's kind of like anything. It's like, I don't know. There's more than one way to skin it.
Yeah, I know. I have somebody I know that operations guy, and every time I talk to him, his response for years when I talk to him would be like, "Well, it depends." And I'm like, "Yeah, motherfucker, I know it depends, but like, you still have to make a decision and move forward. So, what are we doing?" I think that the one of the big takeaways there is a couple takeaways: daily consistency, narrative emails, entertainment first instead of information, because you have to keep them engaged.
Yeah, I mean, because you talked about the attention span. Attention spans are harder in the sense that you have to be more engaging now because you're competing with TikTok and Instagram and the texts that they're getting and whatever else is going on. So if you're writing boring, dry, vanilla emails that put people to sleep, they're not gonna hook. They're not gonna keep reading. But if you're writing stuff that's entertaining, they're gonna come back.
Okay, so God, I'm going so granular with this, but this is so interesting to me because I think about and I look at the data behind engagement with these different mechanisms. So I see people today doing newsletters that have, I see what you just said, which is like a narrative where you're tuning in to hear a story, right? Functionally. And then I see people that do newsletters that are just like different blocks of like, hey, what of the 5 topics do you want to read today? And then it links out to some other shit. What's the place for each of those?
Like I said, they both can work. So like I was talking about with Mike Geary, some of his health stuff, he does that format as well, where there's, I don't know, 3 articles he's linking out to, but then he also inserts like some ads within there. And as a like content email, that does well on both engagement and makes some good money.
So who fucking knows? Test it. Is that what you're saying?
I mean, the answer no one wants to hear.
Right. It depends.
But yeah, like I said, a lot of it really depends on what type of company you want to run. Like the one thing I love about Mike, and we've talked about him a lot now.
Yeah.
He's very clear on what he is. He's like, I am a direct response marketer that builds email lists, and I'm really damn good at monetizing the list. I don't give a shit about the brand. I don't give a shit about these emails looking pretty. I don't care about any of that stuff. I don't want to be like the face of this. Like none of those are like his motives. His is like making the most amount of money from each email he sends out. Somebody with a more like if you were doing a business with like an influencer, they would probably have a very different motive because usually they care a lot less about money and they care way more about the reputation and the brand. Yeah.
And if you're being protective of the brand, what shifts would you make?
I would do much more personality based stuff. Like I said, like if I was writing for Dr. Gundry, who is a well-known doctor and has a brand and has real patients and people who see him and he's doing media stuff, like I would do a bunch of storytelling of case or success stories with patients. I would be telling stories from his own life of how he used to be fat and now he's got in shape and stuff like that. because that's gonna bond with people.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, when you tell the personal, vulnerable stories, those are the ones that get tons of responses. It's like, oh my god, like my main email when you get on my list. I don't know if it's still like this, but it used to be. It tells the story of how my mom called me a scammer, which that's literally the subject line. It's like my mom called me a scammer, and like that gets a shitload of opens, obviously. But it's really a story about my mom not believing in me as an entrepreneur. And that's a common feeling that pretty much every entrepreneur, freelancer has had. Might not necessarily be their mom, but like someone around them thought they were an idiot, thought there's no way this is going to work, didn't believe in them. And so like when I send that out, the responses I get is it's just like overwhelming. It's everybody sharing their story back to me. It's like, oh my God, dude, my dad the same way, like just like shitting on all my dreams. I thought I was the only one, or like I've been trying to start this business now and like my wife doesn't believe, like they relate to it. And so it's a very common, finding those kind of touch points that are like very common experiences work really well.
Beautiful. So what's next? So now you sold out of these things, and I know that you are focused on designing life. So how do you think about what you spend time on now, where business fits into life, what the whole picture looks like?
That's a big question. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, for me, I would say, I was texting you a little bit about this. I feel like in my like 20s and 30s, 20s and early 30s, it was much more money and like growing a business was my main focus.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't really care how often I had to work. I didn't care what I had to do. Even if I like didn't enjoy doing it, it was like, this is what I'm going to do.
Yep.
I would say the last couple of years, I've turned the corner much more towards, is this fulfilling for me? Do I actually enjoy it? And does it fit in with kind of like how I want my life to operate? Because I don't really have any interest in working 12 hours a day, 7 days a week anymore. Whereas there was points like when I was building Patriot Health where I was doing that. And I feel like I learned pretty good lesson with that a couple different times where it's like, if you're doing that, it's not really a matter of if you're going to burn out, it's just when.
Yeah.
Like at some point you're going to burn out. And when you're like in the 20s though, like you can get away with it.
Mm-hmm.
At some point though, you're going to hit the wall. And I had that happen, I would say multiple times, and had to be reminded of it. So I feel like nowadays I'm much more like, I want to work a couple hours a day. I only want to work on things that like I truly care about. I want to do stuff that I actually enjoy, not a bunch of the like grunt work that has to go on in a business. So I try to fit everything into that. And it's like, even when like good opportunities come up, if they don't kind of fit into that, now I'm much more apt to say no. And I mean, I'm sure you've realized this too. Like the more successful you get, the more you're going to have to say no, because the stuff just the good stuff starts coming up more and more.
Well, and the bitch of that is that all of the opportunities get better and better, and they get bigger and bigger, and they get more and more frequent.
Yeah.
So it's harder and harder to say no. Love it. If people want to find out more about you, where do you want to point them?
I would say you just go to my website, justingoff.com. One of these days I'll update it, and I'll probably start. I've been on sabbatical for the last year, so I'm not doing anything right now, but I will get back into writing daily emails probably at some point this year. So I'll get back on that train.
Love it, man. Well, I appreciate you scratching my itch and geeking out on email. Let's go do something fun.
Sweet. Thanks, man.
Thank you.
My director of marketing told me to read this. Thank you for tuning in to Beyond a Million. If you liked this podcast, please subscribe and drop a comment below. We'd love to know your thoughts. If you want to learn the strategies that our guests such as Neil Patel, Amy Porterfield, and Grant Cardone use to scale their business, you can find more episodes on our website at beyondamillion.com.